That's a cool way to end it. I did like that. All right, we did it. First things first. I've got some thoughts. I've definitely got some thoughts. But first things first. The bottom center of the screen says that we have beaten 102 games this year, and 424 since we started doing this in 2020. Those numbers are now false. We've now beaten 103 games in 2023 and 425 since we started doing this in 2020. All right. So, let me start by saying this. Overall, I think this game is very good, right? I think it's very, very good. Very good. So, I'm holding this game to a pretty high standard because it's pretty ambitious, right? So it wants to be held to a high standard. But before I get into the criticism, I do want to just preface all of this by saying that I ultimately thoroughly enjoyed this game, and it's going to rank well. I just don't know exactly how well yet. So, let's start with the positives. Technically, this game is a marvel. I've never seen visual effects in a game quite like this. It is absolutely and completely unique, even unique from other Remedy games. It is one of the most singular, unique experiences I've ever had playing a video game. It really is. It is transcendent in some ways. Technically, the way that it's directed and edited, the way it looks, the way it sounds, it's all so gorgeous in a fucking ugly way. You know, it's really good looking in like a very twisted way, and I appreciate that. I love that. There are some, and that lends itself to the tone of the game, which is horrifying at times. There are some scares in this game that were among the scariest set pieces or moments of any game I played this year, period. So it's very scary at times. It is a horror game. It is a supernatural horror game. There was no doubt about that. What else? Good. I think that the story is really cool, and it doesn't. There are some holes in it, but it doesn't really matter. It's one of those stories that, you know, it's supposed to be weird, you know, so that doesn't really bother me, but it doesn't always make sense. There are some things that don't make sense that do bother me, and I'll talk about those in a moment. What else good? I mean, the voice acting is pretty great. The combat is good to great. I'd say 8 out of 10. It's not the best I've seen. It's not The Last of Us 2 good. It's not Resident Evil 4 good. But it's pretty good. It's pretty good. The combat is pretty good. Okay, so those are the main things that I really enjoyed about it the most. Now let's talk about the issues. So I'm gonna say this in a way that's assuming that, because I make a separate video of this, that isn't revealing any spoilers. There are some chapters in this game that have pretty straightforward mechanics. Think Resident Evil, you know, just straightforward. Kill the bad guys, do the things, whatever. There were also some chapters that had much more complicated mechanics. I did not like those chapters. There are some functions in the game that the way that you can switch certain things around that was cool on paper, and if somebody had explained it to me before I played it, I would have thought, that sounds super cool. But in actual practice, the way that it was handled, I thought was poorly done, because it was arbitrary. It was like a lot of times when solving puzzles in this game just came down to trying every combination until you get the right one. It's like if you get a lock combo with 3 numbers on it, and the numbers only go up to 5, it's like, okay, well, there's only 125 combinations, so let's just keep trying them until we get one. Now, it wasn't 125 combinations, but it might have been 16. And there didn't seem to be any indication as to which one to do sometimes, so it was a lot of trial and error, using mechanics that are really weird and very unique, but the rules weren't clear to me. And so I got really frustrated and ended up pulling up a walkthrough a couple of times. And both times that I pulled up a walkthrough, I was like, I'm glad I looked at that, because I either thought I already did that and I didn't do it long enough, or I didn't stand in a certain place for the right amount of time, really arbitrary shit. Or it's something I wouldn't have thought of doing because I didn't realize that the rules of the game worked that way. And so I think that that comes with the territory a little bit. If you're going to have some really unique mechanics in the game, you're going to have to, you've got some uncharted territory as far as what the rules are. But if you're going to do that, the onus is on you to make sure that those rules are clear. And I don't think this game did that. I think that the game's rules are incredibly unclear throughout on certain chapters. Other chapters didn't have any of that crap, and I loved those. So I thought that was... I'll go beyond saying that it just wasn't for me. I think it was objectively poor. Again, I really appreciate the attempt. I just think that things could have been explained a lot more clearly. There's other stuff that could have been more clear, too. The level design in some of the levels was, I think, just not great. Just wasn't very good. They were complex. And, part of it comes with it, because there's, stuff that, doesn't make physical sense in the physical world. You walk through a door over here and you come out over here. That's fine. That's cool. I get that. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're making these complex levels that overlap vertically around each other, and then you've got all these rules, the ways you can change them. And that's all fine, but complex does not necessarily mean good when it comes to level design. It also needs to be intuitive. And this kind of goes back into what we were talking about before, but specifically, just geographically, the level design did not lend itself well to those mechanics. So that was part of the problem, I thought, for me. Either if you're going to introduce all those things with a way you can change physical reality around you, great. But make the rules clear, and don't do that and make the levels really complicated. You gotta focus on what you want to make complicated, because if you're doing multiple things like that, it's just frustrating. And I'd be curious to know how other people felt about this game, because I don't know, maybe I'm the only one, but I found the level design to be part of that problem. The map was mostly good, except it put a bunch of different markings on the map that it never explained. To this moment, I still don't know what certain question marks on the map meant, certain indicators, and I pieced most of it together by the end, but there should have been a fucking legend. It would have been very simple. Just have a little legend in the bottom left. This is what this symbol means. This is what this symbol means. That there were just parts of the map that I never understood what was there, and so I probably missed out on some extra items or extra features or something, whatever. So that's a very simple thing, but again, it's just not explaining clearly. That's the core biggest problem I had was the getting around the levels, the level design, and the mechanics that you use to get around some of the levels were obtuse and not well explained and not intuitive, and they seemed arbitrary. Like, let's just flip through 7 different options and then, okay, there's the one that works. Okay, great. I don't know why it works, but it works. Let's move on. It was a lot of that. And then some levels didn't have any of that, and I loved those levels. One last thing, and this is a little nitpicky, but it was pretty obvious that the guy that plays Alan Wake, I already know this because I've played Control and heard Casper Darling's voice. The guy that plays Alan Wake is not the voice of Alan Wake, and normally games do a pretty good job of syncing that so it doesn't seem obvious. This game did not. I found Alan Wake in the live action while he was in the live action cutscenes, because this game has a lot of live action cutscenes, while he was talking. It unendingly distracting. It took me out of it every time. And it might be because it's live action. That might have something to do with it. And it could also have to do with the fact that I just happen to know that. But I'll tell you, there were other characters that they did the same thing, and I could tell with them too, and I don't know anything about those characters. So it's the live action. I think it makes it really hard to sync the audio when it comes to the voice, to make it look like it's that person talking. Like, I could definitely tell that Saga Anderson's character was her voice. And I could definitely tell that there were multiple others that weren't. And that was distracting. That's more of it's more of a preference thing. Like, it might be because of the knowledge that I have, and maybe it doesn't bother some other people. But also, like, I don't even know how you would fix that, because I think it might have something to do with the fact that they had a lot of live action cutscenes, which, by the way, I thought was a really cool touch. It's something that Remedy does, and they did it a lot in Control too, and I thought it was cool overall. It's just the audio syncing with the voices syncing with the characters just looked kind of bad. So those are my problems. The main one with a bullet is the way that the mechanics are designed around the levels, and the way the levels are designed around the mechanics, I thought were just really frustrating. So, to sum up, I still think this is a very, very good game. A great game, even. But I don't think it quite reaches the level of masterpiece for me. I think it falls short of being Game of the Year material. And I'm not just talking about my Game of the Year, I'm talking about, like, the Game of the Year. Like, if I were on the board and I was thinking about this more objectively, like, I always think about just how happy games make me. And that's how I'm going to rank this game, too. But, like, I think there is an objective issue with this problem. Like, if I was sitting on a board that I was thinking about, like, the games of the year with my preferences aside, I would say this game has a fundamental flaw in its level design and puzzle mechanics. It has an inherent issue. But yeah, so I think that keeps it out of masterpiece territory. But there were some set pieces in this game, man, that were just incredible. And it almost so good that it was like, how's nobody thought to do this before? It's so perfect. Like, I can't believe nobody's come up with this idea in certain spots before. It's very cool, very cool. So ultimately, you know, this game is gonna rank fairly well, probably, but it's not my favorite survival horror of the year. It's probably may not even be top 5. It'll be up there somewhere. I did enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to see what they'll do with the franchise. I'm also looking forward to Control 2. Now that they're done with this, maybe they'll go back to Control. That would be cool. Anyway. All right. Last order of business. Let's see. Let's just skip it. Let's just skip all that. And Last order of business, Alan Wake 2. It's been fun. But we are now going to delete you from our console and never play you again. Bye! Bye!